Trip to Germany and Austria, October 16th to 29th, 1996. The trip was planned to really get together with our college friends, Ginny and Johnny Johnson, Pat and Harry Trenholm from Montreal, Pat and Francis Ollier from Annecy, France. Unfortunately, DJ and Al Hall could not make it as Al was having an aortic aneurysm repaired at Johns Hopkins on the day we left. We originally planned the first 2 weeks in October, but then found out through our travel agent, Jill of Ambassador Travel, that Lufthansa would reduce transatlantic fares in half starting October 16th, from $1,600 to $800 for two. Except for the weather, in the first 5 days we had 4 days of rain. It didn't make much difference as we mostly stayed inside visiting museums and palaces. Prior to going, Ted Pascal lent us some books on Munich, as he lived there for quite a few years after the war, and generally gave us a few good tips over the phone. Carl Track, whose parents came from Munich, also gave us some travel books and tips on the area. In addition, we got some books out of the local library on the history of the Habsburgs in the period leading up to World War I, as well as the Waltz Emperors on the composers, the Strauss. It was a long trip from Kennedy to Munich with a stopover at Dusseldorf, about 9.5 hours. We took a train, the S-Bahn, from the airport to the main train station, the Hauptbahnhof. 24 Deutschmarks 2 equals US $16.80. This ticket is good for up to 5 persons for 1 day on the S-Bahn, C's for Swift, the U-Bahn, U for Underground, as well as streetcars, trolleys, and buses. Once you're in the city, a 1-day pass on public transportation costs 12 DM, that US $8.40. In Germany and Austria, they have an honor system with no turnstiles. They do have non-uniformed police to occasionally check with fines of $50.00. We did not run into them. When we got to the train station, since we did not know where we were and where the Hotel Germania was located, and we had a lot of luggage, we took a cab for 20 DM to the hotel, which turned out to be just a long block from the station. Our first impression of Munich around the train station was not good, seedy at best. Later, Munich's better residential areas were really fine. However, it was a good location as the hub of all the subways and trolleys was here. Note, cabs are expensive, about 15 times public transportation, but often until you have doped out the public transportation system, you have no choice. After we rested for a few hours on October 17th, Wednesday, we took the U-Bahn a few stops to the Marienplatz to see the old 16th century Rathaus, town hall with the extraordinary clock with figures circulating at certain hours. In German, it is called a Glockenspiel. Keep in mind that Munich was totally destroyed by Allied bombing in World War II, and most of what you see is reconstructed from the rubble. We next walked down a walking street only. In Germany and Austria, the old town Altstadt is set aside for pedestrians only. To the American Express office, where we cash $400 in traveler's checks. You get the best exchange rate at American Express. Their offices are usually located in the best part of town, and you save a 4 to 5 quarter service charge that banks, hotels, etc. charge. On several $1,000s, this amounts to about $80 to $100. Despite the higher service charge at a U.S. bank, I always carry about $100 in each foreign currency to pay cabs on the day I arrive. After converting the currency, we next walk to the 15th century Gothic cathedral, the Frauenkirche, Our Lady's Cathedral, the centerpiece of Munich. It has twin onion-shaped towers, was totally destroyed in 1945, and the outside walls reconstructed from the brick rubble. The inside is on new material with the altars, statuary growls saved from the rubble and reconstructed. You could say that it looks much like it did before the war. We went to dinner near our hotel at an Italian restaurant, had a good meal, and that was the end of our first day in Munich. A word about money and valuables such as passports and airline tickets. I prefer to carry cash and traveler's checks in a money belt around my waist. Passports and airline tickets I carry in a long wallet in my inside coat pocket or in my pants pocket. Johnny and Harry carried all in a pocketbook hanging around their neck. On the train to Vienna, Johnny took his off, left in the train WC, and was lucky enough to have it returned by a passenger in his same compartment who went to the WC next. Johnny would have been up the creek and would have cost him a day and $500, $1,000 to replace the documents if he had not recovered them. For women, there is an A around the neck small money bell that can be worn inside for safekeeping while traveling. Day 2, we took trolley number 19 in front of the main station for a day 195 product ballot for a 30-minute ride to the Nymphenburg Palace. It has many beautiful rooms with ceramic Dutch ovens in each room to our heating, with decorations in gold leaf and many paintings on the walls. The style is a combination of Rococo and Baroque, the difference being that Baroque is darker and symmetrical, and Rococo tends to be asymmetrical, lighter tones, pastel colors, lots of gold leaf on wood. This distinction is open to argument. There was a large ballroom called the Gallery of Beauties. One of the pictures was as if Betty Track was looking out at us. It was striking as we realized that her parents came from Munich. The palace is on about 500 acres with long vistas and a hunting lodge with beautiful interiors in silver tones, which we visited. Another word on helpful hints. We found that travel publications such as Firmer's Germany and Foder's Vienna were extremely helpful to take along in travel details and choosing what to see and what to leave out, as you can't see it all. After a quick lunch, we decided to take a tour which we arranged at the concierge at our hotel. This turned out to be the best idea of the day as it gave us a snapshot of the best of Munich. It completely changed our ideas about Munich. It toured it through the Schwabing, or Greenwich Village of Munich. If I were going again, I would try to get a hotel in this area. It toured through the better hotel and coffee shops areas, fine store areas along Trolley Road number 19, the Opera House, the Residence or City Palace, museums, and city squares. That afternoon, Helene and I went to a billiger conditori coffee shop next to the best hotel in Munich, the Bayerischer Hof on Prominent Platz, trolley number 19. We had coffee and apple strudel, quite expensive coffee, $5 per small cup. Actually, beer and wine is cheaper. But coffee is the thing to do in Germany and Austria, so we often had 6 to 8 cups a day. At evening, we all decided to go to the Hofbrauhaus, a world-famous beer hall, again, trolley number 19, Maximilian Plaza, where we had dinner and took in a show of German Opernmusik, knee-slapping dancing, and lots of beer drinking. It was a bit incongruous to see busloads of Japanese half-filling the hall. A good time was had by all. The last day in Munich, we toured the Winter Palace, the Residence, again, beautiful gilt rooms, but after seeing so many, it becomes a blur. We then returned to the center of town, Marienplatz, walked to St. Peter's Church a few blocks away, built in the year 1100, reconstructed, and behind the church is a Victualian market, an open-air food market, with the finest foods, fruits, vegetables in Munich, prices very high. Had a delightful lunch at a restaurant overlooking the market. Ted Posker recommended that we visit this market on Saturday, which we did. That evening, we again had a good Italian dinner near the hotel. Prices on lunches, $30 for 2 persons, and dinners, $50, $60 for 2 persons, were average. Breakfasts were good and included in the hotel room rent. Germans for breakfast eat a lot of cold meats, cheeses, eggs, breakfast cereals, yogurt rolls, and fruit, and of course strong coffee. Decaf coffee is obtainable as Coffee Hag. Day 4, off to Innsbruck. 3 hours on the train, second class. Okay accommodations, half the cost in the U.S. As we approached Innsbruck, we started to see the Bavarian Alps with snow-covered peaks. Innsbruck itself is a really beautiful area, surrounded on all 4 sides with snow-covered peaks about 5,000 feet high. Here we met Pat and Francis from Annecy, France. At the station, we picked up 2 rental cars, as Francis had rented accommodation at the Waltz Gasthaus at Lands, a small town about 2 miles from Innsbruck, sitting about 1,000 feet up the mountain, overlooking Innsbruck below. During the next 2 days, with Francis as our guide, we lived in Innsbruck for 5 years. We visited the cathedral where Maximilian 150-1600 is entombed, surrounded with twice life-size bronze figures from King Arthur to his ancestors and relatives, about 30 figures. We also visited the Habsburg Summer Palace next door to the cathedral. Beautiful rooms with portraits of ancestors and mythological themes and galleries. Evening meals were good at the favored places of Francis. One evening we went to a cabaret, German-style entertainment with German dancing, songs, lots of yodeling, similar to the Hofbrauhaus in Munich, but a better show. Our last day in Innsbruck, we visited some beautiful churches, one 600 to 180 with very ornate interiors. The iron grille work that separated the entrance area from the church proper was extraordinarily beautiful. The German artisans are famous for this grille work. Francis took us to his favorite towns around Innsbruck, Eagles, Patch, Tujur, all medieval towns with their old churches. In the afternoon, we visited the Volk Museum, which was extremely interesting because of Helene's winter tour connection. They showed the everyday life of the middle-class people, an outstanding exhibit of Tyrolean furniture, painted chests similar to the Pennsylvania Dutch blanket chests of winter tour, costumes in the period 1700 to 1850, Christmas creatures, sleighs, baby cribs, eating tools and utensils, etc. A custom was related to the effect that the Queen Maria Theresa put out an edict that all creatures would show the Christ child only. The local gentry and pastors put all the other figures away only to take them out years later in their own homes as we do today. The next day we took the train to Graz, the second largest city in Austria and the capital of Styria. This was a 5-hour trip through snow-capped mountains, lush valleys. The houses have balconies with flower boxes full to overflowing with fall flowers. The reason we went to Graz was that Jeannie saw an article on Graz in the New York Times. It is a modern city, upbeat, fine stores, good restaurants. Our hotel was a walk up, not so hot. We walked around the city, saw the Dom Cathedral, 1,430 to 148. 2. The old center city is a pedestrian and walking area only. We had our best dinner in Graz on advice of the concierge. The last day in Graz, we took the trolley to the outskirts of the city to visit the Eckenberg Palace, with peacocks and domesticated deer on the grounds. This was again a small rococo palace whose architect designed in the universe theme, 365 windows, paintings on the ceiling depicting the planets, Pluto, Mars, etc. There was a modern exhibit or display of honor, jewelry, clothing, chaise carried by porters and fancy sleighs pulled by horses. One thing very evident in Austria is the extreme Catholicity evident everywhere. Restaurants have religious statuary in their lobbies. There are crucifixes in every hotel room, even in the large endive. It made a distance between the two levels. The rest of us in the bad metal were also porters in real love, Rome, Dan. There are lots of bouquets everywhere too, artificial as well as fresh flowers. We took the train from Graz to Vienna on Friday, October 24th, about 3 hours. The cab from the rail station to the hotel cost $15 US, 15 minutes. Cabs are expensive but necessary because of luggage and you are not familiar with the city when you first get there. Our first impression of Vienna was a large, sprawling city, drab on the decline. Our hotel, the Kaiserhof, was centrally located about 1/4 mile from the Ring. The Ring is a tree-lined boulevard surrounding the old city. It was once a fortified wall around the inner city that was torn down to make room for federal buildings. Some of the streets in the inner city are pedestrian zones. When we got to the hotel, the concierge tried to tell us that the rate was 1,300 shillings per day, $130 US. We had confirmed reservations for 1,170 AS, $117 US, so we got that rate. We walked 2 blocks to the Opera Passage, an underground passage to the Karlplatz about 3 blocks underground. At the far end of the Opera Passage, you exit to the street surface to the Opera House, an elegant structure like the Paris Opera House on a city square block on the Ring. We then went towards St. Stephen's Cathedral with Gothic spires, stopped on the water, American Express, where we got tickets to the Vienna Boys Choir at Sunday Mass. We got last 2 tickets in Bali at the Schönbrunn Palace. We next walked a few blocks to St. Stephen's Cathedral, 15th to 16th century, damaged during World War II. The inside is a large Romanesque Gothic church with many chapels, quite impressive. We then walked towards the Hofburg Palace on a street called Mark, where all the fine stores seem to be located, including Demos, the best-known pastry shop in Vienna. As it was getting late, we had dinner at one of Jenny's restaurants, the Wienerwald, where you can get an inexpensive chicken dinner. Saturday, October 25th is a national holiday, so we decided to take a trolley trip on number 1 around the Ring. We went around the Ring twice, seeing the Parliament, the University, the Gothic Votive Church, the Hofburg Palace. We next went to the Art Museum, Kunst Historisches Museum, housing the Habsburg collection over the centuries and considered one of the great museums of the world. There were rooms of Rubens, Titians, Raphaels, and what was most interesting to me were the Piero Brueggel's masterpieces of the everyday peasant life of the 16th century. We also saw Benvenuto Cellini's gold salt cellar, a treasure world famous. Sunday we got up early and went by taxi to the Hofburg Capella Chapel to near the Vienna Boys Choir at High Mass. It was truly a memorable experience. You do not see the boys. They are in a wing, out of sight, with background music from members of the Vienna Symphony. Later, after the Mass, we saw 2 of them running outside in their sailor caps and uniforms. They were about 10 years old. Next to me was an older gentleman from Holland, and I exchanged a few comments.
After Mass, he thanked me, i.e. the Americans, for freeing Holland from the Nazi occupation during World War II. It was quite touching. We stopped at the world-famous soccer hotel opposite the Opera House to have coffee and the famous soccer torte, which was a dry chocolate cake, chocolate icing with apricot jam in the middle. Tasted good. The service was a bit haughty. Later, we took the U-Bahn to the Prater, like Coney Island, seedy, an amusement park with the big Ferris wheel that was featured in Orson Welles' The Third Man. We had lunch there, and Johnny and I took the Ferris wheel up about 10 stories. Well, it was quite foggy, but we got a general impression of Vienna. One day we started off to visit the Vienna woods by trolley and bus to Grinzing, where we had lunch at a Heriger, a wine tavern that serves a wine freshly fermented that tastes between an apple cider and a wine. We continued on bus 38A to the end of the line to another tavern where we had coffee, looked at the woods overlooking Vienna. Not impressive, would skip. On Monday, our last day in Vienna, the Johnsons and the Trenholms took off for Prague. We reserved this day to visit the Schönbrand Palace on the outskirts of Vienna. We had coffee at Demmel's, a famous pastry shop, bought some candy, and then we took the U-Bahn in the morning to Schönbrand. It's about 1/4 mile to the palace gate, another 1/4 mile to the palace, and then scheduled a guided tour through the palace. This palace is noted for its gardens and vistas. We went through 40 Rococo gilt rooms, sparsely furnished. In one room was a painting showing a market with a monkey picking over hair pieces to eat fleas and lice. Hence the term flea market, so the guide said. Our original tickets for the concert was at 4:30 p.m. When we went to the ticket office at about noon, they told us that the concert was at 6:30 p.m. This kind of screwed up our dinner plans, so we went back into town, had a quick dinner in a very modern and elegant mall next to the Bristol Hotel, across from the Opera House, and took a cab to the concert as it was then dark. The concert was held in a rather large music room, about 100 people, and consisted of a pianist, cellist, flutist, 2 violins. They played Mozart, Strauss, 2 soloists, and a man and a ballet dancer danced several waltzes. A very enjoyable evening for our last day. Taxi to the hotel, to bed, next day fly home. The total cost of this trip was $3,900 for 13 days, or $300 per day. At today's prices, this is a good rule of thumb. We did get a break on airline fares, but took a chance on the weather in late October and had 5 days of rain. General impressions: Mother and I have been to Europe a number of times. In order of interest, I would rank the major cities as follows. Rome, number 1, historic interest. Paris, a beautiful city, a walking city, good French food. London, historic. Southern Spain, Alhambra, Cordova, Moorish influence. Southern France, colorful. Portugal, Geneva, interesting, but would skip. Germany, last, interesting. Helene loves Munich, a fine, sophisticated, diverse city, much like New York, she thought. Something for everyone. We took pictures and we'll show them to you when they're all developed.